Have you ever been there? You're in a relationship, it feels like it's going great, and then suddenly, poof, your partner just pulls away, almost out of nowhere. One minute you're making plans for the future, the next you're just staring at your phone, totally confused, wondering what in the world just happened. Well, in this explainer, we are going to unpack that exact painful pattern. This quote right here, it just gets to the very heart of the mystery, doesn't it? This is from someone who genuinely wants to connect with someone, but he keeps finding himself blowing it up every single time. It's a feeling that so many people share, both the person doing the leaving and, of course, the person who gets left behind, wondering what is wrong with me. So, what's the deal? Is it you? Is it them? Or is it just a string of really bad luck? Well, it turns out this whole thing isn't random at all. There's actually a predictable science behind this behavior, a pattern that plays out in millions of relationships. And today, we're going to decode that pattern so you can see it clearly, maybe for the very first time. Okay, so let's get right into it. The main tool we're going to use to crack this case is a really powerful psychological framework called attachment theory. This is what's going to give us the why behind the totally baffling what of your partner's behavior. The easiest way to think about this is that our brains have a kind of biological program, an attachment system, that is literally hardwired for connection. It's often shaped by our very first relationships when we're kids. At its core, it's a survival code passed down from our ancestors. And believe it or not, that ancient programming is still running the show in our modern relationship. Now, if you look at this chart, you can see that just over half the population has what's called a secure attachment style. That means they're pretty comfortable with intimacy. But a huge chunk of people fall into the anxious and avoidant categories. And for our story today, these two are the main characters. And what happens when those two styles get together? Well, their deepest needs are basically on a collision course. And here it is. This is the fundamental conflict. See, the person with an anxious style really craves closeness. Their system is constantly asking, are you there for me? Are we okay? But the person with an avoidant style, for them, intimacy feels like a loss of independence. Their whole system is designed to keep closeness at a minimum. So when these two meet, well, their opposing needs create this powerful and often really painful dynamic. So let's see how this whole conflict actually plays out in real life. It's not just a chaotic mess. It's actually a very predictable dance. One expert, Dr. Sue Johnson, she calls it the protest polka. It's this repeating cycle where one partner is always pushing for more connection and the other is always pulling away to get more distance. This is from a woman named Tamara, sharing her story. She met a guy, Greg, who was super charming, but he also straight up told her he always gets tired of his girlfriends. Tamara heard the warning bells, but like so many of us, she figured, hey, love conquers all, right? She thought her love would be different. She fell for the idea of them being together and kind of ignored all the signs that he was terrified of commitment. And this right here is the first move in the dance. As things get more serious and intimate, the avoidant partner starts to feel trapped. You can see it right here with Greg. His internal attachment alarm goes off, and he starts putting up walls. You know the excuses. I'm too busy, late nights at work, anything to create some breathing room. So in response, Tamara's system goes into high alert. She can feel Greg pulling away, and she gets totally preoccupied, trying anything she can think of to close that gap. This is what we call protest behavior. It's a totally natural, instinctive attempt to reconnect. She's checking her phone constantly, not making other plans just in case he calls. But here's the tragic part. For the avoidant partner, all that protesting just confirms their biggest fear, the fear of being smothered. Okay, so what is actually going on inside the avoidant partner's head? Why does getting closer feel so threatening that they feel the need to push away someone they care about? The answer lies in a set of subconscious mental tools. The avoidant brain uses something researchers call deactivating strategies. Now, in simple terms, these are subconscious tactics the brain uses to basically turn down the volume on feelings of closeness. They're little mental tricks for creating space when a partner gets, a little too close for comfort. Let's look at some of the most common ones. You might notice them suddenly finding fault with tiny little things about a partner they were just gushing about. Or maybe they start talking about an ex all the time, or this imaginary, perfect person who's out there. They might pull away physically right after a really nice, intimate moment, or send you the most confusing, mixed messages ever. The key thing to remember is this isn't usually malicious. These are subconscious defense mechanisms kicking into gear. This quote from a guy named Paul is a textbook example. He was so excited about his new partner, Amanda. But as soon as they started getting really close, bam, his deactivating strategies kicked in. He started nitpicking, devaluing her, and focusing on these tiny, perceived flaws. It had nothing to do with Amanda, really. It was his attachment system's way of creating the distance it needed to feel safe again. So here's the crucial point. All of this stuff builds up to the final act. These little acts of creating distance, these deactivating strategies, they aren't just random moments of doubt. No, they are the building blocks of the avoidance exit. And we come back full circle to this feeling. That sensation of being trapped or suffocated or crowded, that is the avoidant attachment system's big red alarm bell. It's the internal signal that their independence, which is their most prized possession, is under threat. And in their mind, the only way to neutralize that threat is to get out. So this whole process follows a heartbreakingly predictable 4-step sequence. First, intimacy grows. But for the avoidant, that closeness triggers this feeling of being suffocated. So their mind starts deploying those deactivating strategies to create some space. And when that isn't enough, the final painful step is to exit the relationship, often really abruptly, to get that feeling of independence back. So look, if you have ever been on the receiving end of this sudden exit, the absolute most important thing to take away from this is it wasn't you. It wasn't about your worth or something you did wrong. It was the predictable, almost programmed activation of a very deep defense mechanism. It is a pattern, not a personal judgment on you. Now, understanding this pattern doesn't just erase the hurt, but it can replace that awful confusion with some clarity. It can transform you from feeling like a victim of random circumstances into an informed observer who gets what's going on. So the real question is, now that you can see the code, now that you understand the dance, what's your next move going to be?